Hello, and welcome back to the podcast, Beyond the Revolution. My name is Ryan.
And my name's Easton.
And we, for our penultimate episode, have a bit of a treat. We have Wes Bruce, Ryan Shoemaker. Oh my gosh.
It's all good. It might have been Schumacher at some point, or Schoonmacher, and we might have been boat makers. Who knows what happened at Ellis Island?
And they have been kind of, special guests, part of this Conner Prairie community for now 3 years. We're really excited to get to talk to them, especially with this theme. This is the third time we're talking about it, but this, I think, is going to have a whole new breath on what building community means because of the work that Wes and Ryan do. It's really hard to explain other than artist, but it feels like it's so much more than that. It's artist, poet, sculptor. In the case of Ryan, videographer, just all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, my friends don't even ask what I do anymore.
I was going to say, Wes, how do you explain your work to people?
I usually cut to a moment of self-deprecating humor right there to say that I renter of U-Hauls to show up with what looks like leftovers from the flea market. Found objects is a really fun part of the whole world, but just interested people making things in unusual spaces.
Yeah.
I've never described it like that before until right now, but that's what it feels like.
We're honored.
Yeah.
And so we'll get to this later, but like just a brief, if you can, explanation of the project that you've been working on here at Conner Prairie for the past 3 years.
It always feels like trying to keep it river specific. Like you've got the whole river of water, like which bucket to pour out to show you. So we were offered a large 65 by 65 by roughly 40 foot tall gallery space. We came out here for a couple years and got to know the river, got to know the ecosystem, the nature, but also the programs, the local youth programming, the ag department, the fuller human included ecosystem, inspired by that, and then created a landscape in that gallery space that is both incredibly factual and surrealist at the same time. So then it becomes this story with a physical embodiment through the architecture, through form, and you become part of that story just by walking into the space. And it references the collections, it references granular and super wide histories of the place. It's incredibly site specific. We partnered with local dancers, with local sculptors, local musicians to embody and become these different cast of characters in the film that is so much more than a film that Ryan made. And so by the time you have walked or experienced the whole installation or exhibition, whatever you want to call it, you have gone on this big journey, which hopefully was a bit of a mirror for you to see yourself in a character or in a poem or in a room or in a moment in the film, and to help you understand your own internal, like the back of the tapestry, to solve the threads within you, to know who you're connected to, how you're connected to them, micro and macro with that. I mean, this act of community building, I would hope that people experience the sense of the community that they are gifted to be born into and the possibilities of what that could grow into further, but it's very localized to the ground here in Indiana.
Yeah, we said the other day a line that I really liked, and I've said a few times since. It's like a set for the play of growing up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I like that for a lot of reasons. One of our core values of working together is we always say we just want to put out invitations to become co-collaborators in the art, so that when you walk into this space you can identify with something. It's not like one character's story being told. There's a way to identify with different aspects of the story and different parts of the history and different parts of the ecosystem, and say what would it mean if I was the goldfinch, or what would it mean if I was the sturgeon, or what would it mean if I was the deer, and to be able to kind of see through different lenses, so that all of a sudden you're not having an argument between two sides, but you're kind of able to empathize with these different ways of truly being with a place.
Mm-hmm. Say that first line again. We build sets for...
we build sets for the play of growing up.
I love that.
Well, and it's interesting because I had Wellspring a very, abstract idea of what Wellspring was, because everyone kept calling it it's a playscape, it's for kids. But then I went through it for the first time 2 days ago, And like that intentionality you guys are talking about, like every single bit of it comes across to me as very intentional. I know we may not have to get into this super deep right now, but like the whole part of so I jumped in the giant foam pit because I had always wanted to do that, and I think I never got to do that as a kid.
Sure.
There were opportunities to do it, and for whatever reason, every single time I had an opportunity to do it, like I'd have like a random nosebleed or I'd be sick or something, and like everyone was like, Easton, you got to jump in the foam pit. You got to jump in the foam pit. And when I jumped the first time, actually both of these are on video. It would be really cool if we could like cut to that video, because the first time I jumped in, I was like, it was almost like I was still in my adult brain of like, I don't know if this is going to hold me. I'm going to jump feet first to make sure that if I get hurt, you know. And then when I fell into the foam and was like, oh, wow, this is actually pretty stable. And for right now, free of germs. So then I was like, then Michelle was like, Easton, you have to go again. And so I ran back up there and did like a belly flop. And I was like, for a second, like, exactly. Like, not many things these days outside of like maybe Christmas make me feel like a kid again. But like for a brief second there, I was like, this place really, I mean, like, yeah, it's kids are there's gonna be a lot of kids in there when we open, but like that was like a really cool moment for me. So thank y'all for one. And also just that's just the first thing I thought of when I was like,
well, to go a couple layers deep right away, Wes said this thing a couple years ago to me, like from some research study or something about how the Contemporary Art Museum is like the most feared place like in the world.
Like part of the question was even like, what do you most nervous to try and dress for? Is it a wedding? Is it a graduation? And people are like, I don't know what to wear to a contemporary art museum or to an art museum. Like it stresses people out.
At the end of art school, I was like so jaded. It was like we were going up to LA. I live in San Diego. We're going up to LA for these like gallery openings, and it's like, who's the art for? It can't just be for like these old dudes in red skinny jeans. Like they're out of touch, but they're the only people who can afford it. And I was like, And so like part of like making art for kids, and I say that with air quotes, is because like when you say that, all of a sudden people aren't intimidated anymore. And then all of a sudden they're willing to participate with it. And then you catch these adults and junior hires and high school kids and grandparents going like slipping into a poem and then slipping into a thing and then asking more questions. And all of a sudden they're just participating with it just like a kid. Yeah. And like selfishly, that's like my favorite kind of art experience to have. Like I love just going and getting lost. But it's like also my native tongue, so I'm not like intimidated by the Contemporary Art Museum anymore. But it's like trying to figure out how to offer that experience that is like my favorite experience to people who would otherwise think like, that's not for me. I don't know enough about that. I'm not ready to try and understand an art piece or whatever.
Yeah. In your experience, like for us to now have all of these folks in there, like these friends that are coming through after it's been like our place of work for so long, where now we have the gift to be able to give it away, and to have what to me has been this huge chemistry of the shrieks for joy. Like to me, like that's our little joy corner over there. Like all of these adults just yipping with excitement, that flavor, that texture paired with all the tears that are happening in there. Like all these folks that are like coming out of the turtle room with tears of like, you know, it's part joy, or people that were like grieving something. I talked to somebody that had just gone through like the anniversary of a really significant breakup, and they were feeling it, like all of these real emotions that are being noticed and felt and expressed. And so you've got like the high highs and the low lows, but like then everybody that's there is sharing in that. Like that friend that comes out from the church crying is being hugged by the person that they're in there with, or that shriek is then shared and they jump into the foam pit together. Like it's this space that has room for all of these emotions, and people come in with their guards down. There's less defense mechanism of I don't know what to think, I don't know enough to get this. But if it's for kids, then you're like, well,
it's also the beauty of like the in-person thing, because all of a sudden you can't not be aware of the people that are right next to you experiencing this thing, and it changes your whole situation, because like you're just aware of the vulnerable experience happening next to you. And so it changes the way you participate with a thing when you're like part of a group doing this thing together, even though you're having your own moment with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really appreciate Easton's perspective because like I've been kind of along the journey. I've been trying to explain to people what this is, and it's really hard until you get into the space. And like this past week, it's been incredible. Not only with Wellspring, but I've got a chance to see one of your past installations and see how that is, you know, representative of an entirely different community and all of the work that went into that. And then this week we've been getting to experience people going through Wellspring for the first time. And I know you talk, it's hyper local, but you've brought a bunch of friends this week who aren't from here and are still getting so much out of the experience. So it's really incredible to see. And when I describe it, I hate because I don't feel like I'm giving it justice. Like truly you have to just come and see it.
Please do.
It's so immersive. It's just incredible.
All ages come see.
Yeah, I mean, a lot, like we ended up just writing a love letter to Indiana at the end of it. And that's part of the universal and particular kind of tension we're working with is like, sometimes people are coming because they're like our parents and wives and siblings and cousins and whatnot. But also, like when you see humanity up close like that with no holds barred, like it's easy to get along. It's easy to slip into it and fall in love with someone's story that's being presented to you in that way.
And so my first question is, so this isn't the first, obviously we just mentioned another one, but this isn't the first installation you do. What are you looking for in a community, in an organization when you start one of these projects? Do you get to choose a little bit?
Yeah. My mind went straight to like this obscure it's either a Fez or Rumi. Like looking gets in the way of seeing. like that's what I like, because you're like, what are you looking for? And it's like we didn't come in like looking for anything. Like we came in to see what was here and then to be able to form a project around what we saw, around what we experienced.
We adamantly showed up without a plan on purpose, and like that was a selling point. We're like, hey, we're not trying to tell you what we're doing because we want to just like ask these people what their favorite part about being here is. It's like one of our favorite hacks is just like, hey, introduce me to some of your favorite people around town, because everybody wants to talk about their favorite people. And you end up just meeting people who are just so embedded in a way of life that just makes sense. That's like part of their world, part of their family, part of their home, part of their community. And like we usually do these like really fantasy oriented things, and like part of the way through the project we had met so many wonderful people. I was like, dude, all we have to do is like film a documentary, and it's like this weird fantasy film because it's just people living their archetypal roles in the world.
And then the extension of that is all of this it's happening somewhere. So like what's the stuff of the setting? Like what's the grist of this place? Like what is the history of it? Tell us what has happened here, who has happened here.
Yeah.
And to be able to go and like hear those stories. So I'm interested, like I guess that is something that we're looking for, is like we're looking for people that know the place well, that love that love the place, love the ecosystem that are embedded in it, and also have critique for how it could be better. That they're actively trying to create the future that they want to live collectively in with the people that they're sharing it with.
Yeah. One of my the things I try and hold up high as a value for myself in my art practice is just to remind myself that I don't have a right to change anything I'm not in a relationship with, or I don't have a right to speak to anything that I'm not in a relationship with. And so we show up like really trying not to pretend we could read a couple books or listen to a few podcasts or have like done really well in our college history class and understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
And so like with Dale, our limestone sculptor, Dale Enochs, we just got introduced through a friend of a friend, and like we just went under the guise that we wanted to learn about Bloomington and learn about limestone. And he like just took us to all these quarries and was telling us about the formation and telling us about the geography and the geology. And we spent like a whole year hanging out with him quarterly before we were ever like, hey, can we come shoot a film at your house? And it was really just because we wanted to learn what he was doing.
And I know you call it seeing, but I also love how you refer this as research. So Easton and I do research for Prairie history, and this is a much different, more personal, connected research, which as a historian, sometimes it's scary for us because with history, you get a little bit more latitude because you're a little bit removed from the subject that you're researching. But you have to kind of embed yourselves, like be a part of it.
The wording is always a bit of a dance because usually up front when we say we want to do a research period, we put the word research into there because it sounds acceptable to those that would.
With
okay,
it fulfills the
phase.
paper needs
Yeah.
of the place.
But then you show up, but then as soon as we start doing that research phase, we kind of get in trouble for the word research because research is also getting like sprayed in the face with a hose from a preschooler. Like that is also the research, but it doesn't look like what is on paper.
Yeah.
But it's really, again, it is that relationship, but that sometimes we'll tack the word playful research in front of that because a lot of the time was spent with kids.
Or
Whether
with
that was
people that act like kids.
Yeah. And it's a bit of a nebulous process because, we're like constantly following leads, whether that's something we heard about. We heard like the world's largest sycamore stump is in Kokomo. So it was like, okay, I'm going to Kokomo today and I'm going to hit 3 thrift stores on the way there to see what's there. And all of a sudden we end up in the Greentown Glass antique store learning about Greentown glass. And then you end up in Wabash in the bookstore and they've got all these books about the White River from the 70s that are like ex-library books. And it's just like one thing leads to the next. And sometimes you can't pitch what the research is going to be in a way that like...
We met a guy at a bowling alley who was on the pit crew at a dirt track race. And he's like, you guys haven't been to a dirt track race? No, okay, we gotta go see the sprint cars or whatever. And that's like also the research.
It really does remind me of our archive trips in a way.
Oh yeah,
and like the rabbit holes we find ourselves going down.
Yeah.
But instead of looking in old newspapers, y'all are actually like going to.
It's rabbit hole for sure. It's like a notch on an EQ. It's not like you're like getting this holistic thing. Like we're just like we smell something and we chase it. And like I wrote this line in a paper in college that I like still really love, and it was about how like I want to be like a dog who follows the scent of the good, even though my palate changes, and just to like run after that. And no matter like what my definition of good is just like, and this is also the absurdity of being an artist. You kind of have to be like, I need to believe that what I'm chasing, I believe in, and that's kind of convoluted, right? But like, it's just to like trust what I'm doing enough to do it really earnestly, which like a lot of things are trying to tell you not to do in the world because like it's really easy to be jaded. It's really easy to have too much information. We live in this time where like I think we got more than we bargained for with how much is accessible to us. Like not just being thrown at us because of the algorithms, but just like you have endless data available to you through all of these online archives and endless news available to you because every single person, every single neighborhood and every single country is broadcasting. And so like being brave enough to just follow a lead to its termination is sort of a rebellion against that in some ways.
And I'm realizing a lot of this is like it's ideas about ideas that we're talking about. And I was like, oh, I've got something specific that's a really nice through line for this for anybody that like hasn't gone that might be interested. So word got out that we're interested in what's just sitting around in people's barns or attics. And Sarah Newkirk, who works here at Connor Prairie, heard about that. She's her family has been in the state for many generations.
Took the first trace out through Marion County.
Yeah, and she invited us to come down to Shelbyville and to go into her family's storage units, which is just full of old beams, old boxes of it's the family heirlooms, but they didn't know what to do with them, and one of the boxes contained her Uncle Emmett's daily journals, years and years and years and years. And we were like, oh, those are interesting. It was kind of note. It's deeply personal to find someone's journal, but then to have that in quantity was like, whoa, that's
like decades.
Yeah, decades, noteworthy. But it was like, but what are we going to do with that? So mental note for that. But then simultaneously, we were chewing on what we'd experienced going down the river, and we had seen all of these clamshells, all these freshwater mussel shells, learning about like the old button manufacturing industry that was on the White River, but also seeing again like multiplicity, like just the uncountable amount of clamshells in this. And it was like, oh, the White River it's it's full of stories. This, and we're always looking for metaphors. This is like this, or similes. This is like this, or this is this. And it was like clamshells, like stories, and we ended up developing this
And they're
library
like
character.
They filter the river.
Yeah.
Like they just feed on what's going by, and like how much of that has just passed right through that little opening.
Yeah. So we eventually kind of settled on one of these characters being the clamshells, being the mussel shells, and they would be the librarians or the keepers of the story. And that was, kind of in our ethos, that was in the mythology. And then when it came time to create the actual installation, we knew we were going to have a library, and the library was going to be sort of the air quote, like the home of the clam and mussel shell in the installation. And then it was like, well, what are we going to do on the walls? We could do a mural, we could just book stacks and leave it as a plain color. And then it was like, oh, the whole idea of all of these personal stories is embodied from Sarah Newkirk's uncle's journals. What if we wallpapered all of the walls? And she had given us permission to do, at this point, like whatever we chose. Asked her, could we use these pages as wallpaper? She was thrilled. And so we wallpapered the majority of the interior of the library
from the late 50s to the 90s.
Wow.
And it is this intimate look into this, in his life, but also the family's life, because you're going through and it's like,
Took the dog to the vet, had to get a
yeah,
tooth pulled.
mom died today. 2 days later, brother like passed away today, or Vietnam happens in there. World, like Pearl Harbor is
talks
bombed. You
about
see
one
all
of his
the
friends getting drafted, or D-Day, and you're just like, whoa, like reading history through this one person's farm journal.
Yeah.
Like where he's also writing the high and low temperature for the day.
Yeah. Or it was like Pearl Harbor bombed, had to go to basketball practice, like went squirrel hunting, caught two. It's like, it is like the most global and then the most granularly specific.
Yeah. And it's so Connor Prairie. We had our president and CEO on the second episode, and we talked about what makes Connor Prairie unique, especially in this moment, thinking about American history. And it's because we tell those every life stories. That's from day one, Prairie Town. It's always been about people living their everyday lives, how they are impacting the history around them, and how history is and how they are impacted by the history in the same way.
Minutia.
So then the minutia, thinking of that, maybe this is just now, we're doing show and tell, like telling interesting stories that like had a through line from like the research phase.
Yeah.
We went on a walk and talk tour
yeah.
downtown Indy.
Oh, yeah.
With Samson Livingston.
Oh, he's great.
Walking through, and it was like, because they were like, it was like, introduce us to people that we should meet. And they're like, come hang out with Samson, let's do a tour. Walked us past Walker Theater, showed us like all of these neighborhoods that essentially were like the jazz epicenter, and then they got knocked down, paved over for medical facility parking lots, yada yada yada. And he cut to this spot, and he cut to this section where they were doing road work, and you could see the actual layers. You told this story yesterday, like the actual layers down below to see like what was the sidewalk and the road in that heyday of jazz in this indie scene. And so we went and again struck, noteworthy, took a couple photos, and then we actually recreated that moment in the installation. So there's a cut of the wall where there's like the old brick, and then like
a layer of train tracks.
The layer of train track, and like that wood sidewalk that's in there. And then we have the photo with Samson, the photo of that road cut in like the behind the scenes portion of the gallery, to be like, this is a reference of like what has been here and the stories that got covered up and then excavated back out. So much of what y'all are doing is like, it's the excavation and bringing it back to light again to see where you can take it.
I hate to, I don't want to kill that thread, but the behind the scenes is so cool, because I was just talking about researcher. What we do is we cite our sources in our research, and your behind the scenes is effectively doing a research paper.
It's a
and
bibliography,
you're
it's a
just
bibliography.
on the side.
Right.
And it's so cool because like I was lucky enough to be a part of a lot of those moments, and going back and seeing the connections and how it fits into the new experience. It's incredible. But
I grew up essentially on a college campus, and I'm from a family of academics, and so like school was like kind of always my native tongue, but it was always this really frustrating thing for me, because it just seemed like way too narrow of a delivery method for like all of this stuff that is so exciting and like so material, and like we get to like choose how to like, I love to say like it's all semantics, like smiling, because it like the semantics make up our bodies, they make up our world, and like how we choose to interpret those is like how we go out and live our lives. And so like I love that you say it's like a research paper, because it truly is. It's like like there's this myth that artists are geniuses and that they just think differently and they can come up with all this stuff. And I'm like, no, we're just experiencing everything like everybody else. Like here it is. I just went to this thing and Samson gave me this idea, and I just like got the opportunity to put it on the wall.
Yeah. And I don't mean to boil it down to that, but from a research perspective, that's how I like enter into the story.
Absolutely.
And I know you do a very purposeful job of multiple entry points to get in, especially for people who, again, we talked about like adults. It's much more accessible if you think of this, as a children's playscape, because now all of those walls are down and you can enjoy it. So I appreciate it from a historian's perspective as well.
Yeah, it's
when I showed up to work with Wes, I was just like so overwhelmed with these worlds that he created, because he loves to just like drop you in the middle of this world and you can walk in any direction and find new stuff. And I was like, because I'm a little bit more type A, like I love doing research papers, and I was like, okay, let me like play connect the dots, and like let me like give people like these start points, and then they can do all this stuff. So I like the research kind of gallery idea was like kind of this way for me to say like, hey, this is the tour I took through the world Wes made. Come with me.
And it's really been this nice unfolding to be able to have your perspective on this, because you've helped me understand like the value of that in a way that I didn't before when I was doing these things in the past. Before our team grew, I would kind of do them on my own with a lot of help, but like all the ideation kind of came from my notebook. And I had this like really strong premise that I wanted these things to be like worlds in and of themselves. And if you so much of my context comes from like growing up as an only child in the woods. So like I was like, if I'm an only child in the woods, like there isn't an artist statement at the front of going into the woods. There's not a didactic that's going to explain what happened to this tree, why it fell down. I was like, you just show up and you like learn non-linearly by like picking up clues and paying attention and using your full sensory experience to accumulate that. But then came a point where we're like, people keep asking a lot of the same questions that I'm genuinely interested in chewing on with them. So why don't we make this another doorway, another access
Or people
point?
choose to think that it's just like whatever you found on the side of the road put back up for no reason. And like I remember I went to a documentary that Wes had made after his first project as a high schooler, and there was this guy in the back. He was like this cool college art student hipster guy, and at the end during the Q&A he goes, "I call BS." Like in the whole crowd.
The quote was, can I cuss on this podcast really quick?
Sure.
Goes from the back row, scream, he like interrupted the whole Q&A panel and goes, "What's up with this utopian bullshit?"
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Hard
And
cut.
was like
I'd
pissed
never
about
forget
it.
that.
And when I showed up like as an intern in college to work on a project that he was doing out in Massachusetts, I was like, oh my gosh, you spent like lifetimes organizing all of this stuff before you put it up. Like someone's got to say that. Because like even for the people who don't care, they don't have to look. But like there's people who care. There's people whose home this is, and I'm like, dude, you read all the books, you listened to all the stuff, you went out and talked to all these people, you found the history, and like this is a research project, and there's ways to present that so that people aren't like offended by this presentation of like a positive view of the world that just seems wrong because they're living in a cynical frame.
And like Wellspring itself is love letter to Indiana, but to me, the behind the scenes is also a love letter to the team that helped you create it.
Absolutely.
Too. It just everyone kind of gets a shout out and gets to see themselves in the work.
Yeah.
Actually on the wall.
Well, it's a really nice. I like conversations like this because I feel like I learn about how we're making things, even the act of talking about it. And there's, this premise of like creating community that you all are chewing on. And there's one of my favorite artists is this woman, Anne Hamilton, and she has this question that's a premise for the way that she had made this particular piece. It was all of these swings that were connected by fabric, and as you swung on the swings, the fabric would move, and it was just this easygoing, lighthearted place. But the question or the primer was, how are we to be together? And I love that and then that connects then back to your, like, this is a play set for growing up.
Mhm.
Because to me, I'm like, Wellspring asks that question. It's like, how are we to be together?
Yeah.
And it gives you the chance to live out how, as artists, we're biased on how we think we should be together,
Yeah.
but it gives you the opportunity to feel feelings together, to look to see, like, this is how we went about doing it, and this is how we want to try and offer credit or acknowledge, or this is how we went about being together in this moment to learn what we learned, then to make what we make. So it's us also
Mhm.
playing that part of, like, how are we to be together into this, and to give ourselves the opportunity to grow into it. But by revealing all of the behind the scenes, it's an invitation for people to notice their own tapestry of how they're woven into the world, because we're all making something. Like, we're all creating something, and we're all, like, threading everything together. And ours was just a chance to be like, here's how we did it. How might you do this?
Yeah.
You keep going back to this.
This is a Venn diagram for the ecosystems thinking bit too, where a thing that sent me on this whole thought experiment, which sometimes I frame a thought experiment as like, okay, what if I just took this at face value and believed it was true? How would I try and interpret it? And St. Francis of Assisi has this line, and this is not a direct quote, but he says something along the lines of, like, creation was the first iteration of God, and you can have access to all of the mysteries and metaphors of God just through the world, just through the way things agree with each other or disagree with each other. And it sent me kind of on this whole trajectory. I was in, like, an ecology and conservation class at the time, and I remembered, like, something I learned in that class was that, like, all these molecules that we eat, like, break down into the actual flesh and bone of our body. So now I'm literally composed of that which I've consumed. And, like, am I composed of cruelty? Am I composed of justice? Am I composed of grace? Am I composed of mercy? Like, what does that mean for me? And then all of a sudden you have to then consider, like, the methods through which we interact with the ground. And, like, all of a sudden you realize that, like, plants die so that they can survive the winter, so that they can come back to life. Or if they don't survive the winter, they die so that the other things can live. And even if it's not, like, this intention thing, you realize that, like, this chaotic cycle of life and death is also, like, a maturity and a growing up. And, like, the elder creatures, like, come back into the ground and become the babies again. And so, like, there's this ecosystems thinking, and, like, there's all these different beings on their hero's journey and at the apex or the peak or the end of their life cycles, but they can't think of themselves alone in an ecosystem. It's not an individual task. They only exist in direct relation to all the beings around them.
Yeah, I love that.
And so why would we pretend otherwise?
Right.
We're just a part of a different ecosystem.
Well, and taking it a little bit of a step back, you said, like, the art scene, contemporary art scene, made you really jaded, and thinking about how when you come in and approach something that I really appreciated with the whole research coming into this place. Not a lot of people are excited by Indiana, and so the way that you approach your projects with curiosity, respect, and joy on the front end is really refreshing, especially for, I mean, all of our previous podcasts are talking about this is problematic or promised land is proving ground. Some really,
Sure.
we have some difficult history here in Indiana, and we're also not that exciting in the present. So, like, how do we both grapple with that? And it's really easy to get jaded with, yeah.
Absolutely.
And
And
so-
don't get me wrong, I'm an extremely jaded individual a lot of the time. It's just like, this is what I get to believe in. This is
Right.
like my religious practice in a way. Like, this is what keeps me going, and not just, like, trying to get lost in the ocean,
Yeah.
literally.
There was a conversation I had with our friend Sarah, who worked on Power Place. And she's from Indiana, and she didn't know, like, really, like, the back end, all this research that we had done. And I was kind of telling her some of the stories, and she was like, oh my God, like, you all really got to know the place. Like, what did you think? And my response to her, like, kind of took her by surprise, that, talking about the things that I loved, the things that we were introduced to, the hospitality that we felt, like the generosity of spirit, to be able to give like a real answer when we asked a question about some of the hard truths, like the truth telling that happened with it, the things that I appreciated. She was like, oh my God, usually when I tell people I'm from Indiana, they look back and sort of sarcastically go like, oh, I'm so sorry. And that I like, she goes, I hate that answer. And I was like, I hate that answer for you. Like, imagine if somebody said that about your home. Like, it gets me riled up now. Like, I want no one to ever feel like that about their home. And everywhere is somebody's home. And every home deserves to be like this wholehearted thing. So, like, if we're being invited in, like, it is our actual calling, like the vocation to try and partner with this place that is a home.
Yeah.
To endless beings. Like, and again, that question of how are we all to be together, it's at the front of Wellspring. An ecosystem is in the root words of it is just oikos, home, systema, the system of the house. Mm-hmm. How are we all to dwell together in this house that we, for better or for worse, have to share?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like, this is a macro thought, take it or leave it, but I think like one of the pathologies of America is that like most of us whose families and whose ancestors have shown up here over the course of the last 300-400 years, like don't have any long form relationship with the ground itself. And I think that's like one of the biggest differences between us and almost any other country on the planet is that like we don't have a way to relate to the ground we're walking on very well. Mm-hmm. And I think if you can sort of reframe what you're doing and like actually believe that you like can partner with this place, the ground itself, it will change your whole framework on how you go about your day because you're not just a visitor here. Like at some point, we have to partner. We have to be from here if we're going to say we live here. Mm-hmm. And like, I know that there's a lot of dynamics going on with that, right? Like, and that individuals who have ancestral reason to call this place home and who have relationships with the ground in a very real way might have some kind of issues, but like in a lot of way, like my response to like being on their ground is just to say, okay, I'm gonna actually try and treat this place
you
like
have to have respect for the space. Yeah. And then you're going to do right by it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or at least try once you start realizing what the plants and animals themselves like have gone through or need.
Right. And sorry. Go ahead, Easton.
Well, I wanted to bring in, because speaking of that, of course, the main piece in the middle, not the main piece, but like a very significant piece in Wellspring is the way you kind of relate to the characters that have been created. So like, y'all talked about some of them, the corn, the sturgeon, you know, the sycamore and all that.
The thing that I appreciate about it is like when you're creating a community piece, you can't be everything to everyone. But you guys sure do try with metaphors, right? These, or I should say, archetypes that people can relate to. And so even if like you don't connect to, because you haven't been to Bloomington and you don't connect with this, there's still these like character archetypes that, again, people who aren't from this place can see themselves in and kind of follow the story of.
Yeah. Well, and that is authentically our culture. Like, Joseph Campbell and lit classes and Western philosophy, like I'm fine with owning that. So like I'm just going to use that as a vessel to try and get into this stuff. Mm-hmm. And like, you know, they've boiled it down to 12 archetypes and I like the system and I'm just going to like use that and I'm going to use the Enneagram because it's like how I grew up. It's like my native tongue. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to like commit to my native tongue. I'm going to like learn as much as I can about it and use that as a prism through which to view the world. Like I even have like this semi-real kind of joke about how like the West Lane Quadrilateral is still my worldview. Like I grew up as a Nazarene. I'm like deeply Nazarene. My great-great-grandparents started the Nazarene denomination. And like the West Lane Quadrilateral is like a big deal. And like I see those pillars, that quadrilateral as saying like, okay, this is historicity, this is research, this is tradition, this is experience. And we can like, I can use that to participate. And so like if I'm honest with myself about where I come from, it lets me like not be so cagey about like what am I stepping on other people's toes, because it's just the path I have to walk on.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I also like that you layer on top of those archetypes things that are uniquely to this place, because you see yourself in the archetype, then you connect it to, you know, the eagle, the deer, the corn, and then you go out in the place and you get to actually experience it also outside of the exhibit. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of connect the dots for people to see themselves in this place.
And it was a specific ask. Like part of the fun part about working with Connor Prairie is that like people walk through our exhibit and then go out onto 1,000 acres of real land and like go participate with the things we're talking about. So it was like the ask was to like create a primer to go participate at Connor Prairie, and we're like, dude, this is ideal.
Yeah. It's part of the invitation often, or at least the last few projects have been threaded into where we're going to renovate our museum campus, or we're building a new institution from scratch. We want to invite you all in to sort of be like the match that lights the fire in the fireplace, like to pique people's curiosities, to like open their minds a little bit to like what they're going to experience in Spark Lab or at the blacksmith shop or in PLPG, like just like
On the trail system.
everywhere.
Or even
Everywhere,
outside of Connor
yeah,
Prairie too.
Totally,
Is what
totally. Oh,
Indiana.
great!
Yeah.
Cut to everything in the whole wide world museum book by Grover. Where Grover goes through the everything in the whole wide world museum, and it's like, this is like my telling of it, where he goes through and he's like building this experience of like, wow, isn't it great to see everything in the whole wide world? But then as he like is getting towards the end of his time there, he's like, oh, I'm kind of bummed that I will have experienced everything. But then, like, and this is like my cut to Grover finds the last room with a door that just goes outside. And so you walk out of the museum with Grover's eyes still wide open to go see the world with interest and curiosity. And that's sort of our task, is just to set people up to have their hearts ignited or opened or whatever, to have their senses cued, be like, this is how you can be in this moment, and then take that and go everywhere, and then take that home with you in the car and go see your own street, your neighborhood, your neighbors, like that.
I grew up in this really cool little town where there's some like localized surf breaks, and like the idea of localism is like this kind of big theme in my hometown, and so it was always like this gift to me to be from somewhere. And then as I got older and started thinking like just more about my place in the world, I realized what a gift it was to like have pride in my home and like to be from somewhere. And I think when we think about trying to offer all these different archetypes to people, part of my heart for that is just to say like, I want kids to be proud of home. Like I want people to walk in and go like, I'm from here. Yeah. And like, what does that mean for me? And not try and have to go pretend somewhere else. And like when people do go somewhere else, I want them to like carry their home with them and say like, oh, I see what you're doing here. Can I bring my little local take?
There's this section, like this is, I wanted to tell you this. You said something about like truly being from somewhere a couple weeks ago, and I couldn't figure out what it reminded me of, and I just remember what it reminded me of. There's a section in Letters to a Young Poet, Rainier Maria Rilke, where he's like, he has this pen pal ship with this young poet. The young poet sends poems, Rilke reads them, and then like sends responses back. And one of these poems that this young poet sends, Rilke goes and rewrites it in Rilke's own handwriting and then sends it back. And the young poet kind of reads it but doesn't recognize it at first. And then the metaphor that then ends up happening as the description of that experience was as if you're looking in the mirror and you don't recognize yourself at first, and then all of a sudden, like, whatever focus pull happens or fog gets wiped off, but then you're like, you are now looking at a reflection of yourself. And I feel like that happens in these spaces, or at least we try to, or that has happened and we accidentally made that work, who knows? But you go in and you're reading this poem just because it's a thing to read at eye level, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Like,
Yeah.
Marion, the director of the summer camp, was in there, and I walked in and she's just bawling, and she points at the coyote poem. She goes, that's me. That's me. And I asked her, like, what about it? What about it? And then I like kind of was describing it, and she goes like, what's the coyote's role in this whole world? And I go, it's the coyote's role to learn from the other characters and invite them into a homecoming. And she turned, she goes, damn it. And I was like, what? And she goes, that is my role, but it like hurts sometimes to hold that much responsibility because it's hard and you got to show up every day to be like the leader of the summer camp, to be like a member with responsibility. Like she carries the mantle, a lot of responsibility for a lot of people, but that act of like seeing yourself in is really valuable. I know what it feels like to find myself in a poem or in an album or in a book and to resonate with that and to learn more of who you are. Like what a gift for someone to make something and then you like understand yourself better and your context.
It's also
in
the
the world.
diary of like Pearl Harbor happened today. I went to basketball practice. It's like, it's just different versions of the expansion and contraction of what it means to just try and be here right now. Cheesy, but like earnest.
And it's really interesting, especially the conversation of like having stake in pride and in where you're from. Obviously, all of this is happening in the context of 250 years since America was founded with Declaration of Independence, and a lot of people are just jaded in that fact, and it's hard to find kind of your place, the joy. There's all of these other things you're being impacted, and I don't know if this impacted your work at all, but did America 250? Did you know this was going to launch in this moment? Did you have an idea of like how people might be thinking in those more macro levels about their home and what it means to be living at this time?
Yeah, I mean, we started this project kind of in the aftermath of COVID and the 2020 fallout and thinking about race relations really heavily in America. And, so many of my college educated friends were just like, there's, how do we do anything? Everything's messed up and every system is corrupt. We can't eat anything healthy, et cetera, et cetera. Like no matter which direction you point, it's really easy to point at problems. But, back to philosophy class, I was like, well, you literally by the rules can't define something in the negative, which I don't mean you can't define something by saying it's bad. You can't define something by pointing out what it isn't. You have to define something by saying what it is. And so like, what does it mean to be American in the positive, not saying it's good, just saying what it is. And so like part of this art practice for me and doing something in the heartland and doing something on this 250th anniversary seasonal thing is just to say like, what is it? What is it to be here? And how do we frame it without saying what it isn't or saying what it did wrong? Like just describe the thing because I have to know what I am. And I don't know where my family, like go back to Jamestown on both sides. Like I have some recent relatives from Italy and Germany, but that's like 5-6 generations back. Like people in my family did the genetic test. It's just like American, but we don't know. And I don't really know how people got out to California. I just know like a few stories and I'm like, okay, I have to find a way to identify here so that I can do something with it.
And the grappling that comes in like those moments of the unknown. And there's this conversation that I was trying to remember who it's between. It's Thich Nhat Hanh and I want to say Thomas Merton, and it was like this sort of forum of Buddhism and Christianity. And they're kind of talking about the pros and cons, and Thich Nhat Hanh was often asked like, I was raised in this religion, but I'm really connecting with Buddhism. Should I become a Buddhist? And he's like, if that connects with you, go ahead. Not for me to say. But if you want my opinion on it, if you have something to critique about the religion in which you were raised, you're going to be more effective to critique it from the inside as a member of that household by birth. And I think of being American in a similar way where, there's all kinds of conversation when things get hard in America, you hear it where it's, I'm going to move to Canada or I'm going to whatever.
Yeah,
and I'm kind of like, I'm like,
absolutely.
If that's you, do you. But I'm like, I personally would rather live within the household, live amongst the baggage, live amongst the hordes and try and figure out how to participate with the mending, with the medicine, with the healing, and to work from within the house, because this is the house in which I was raised, and I'm not trying to get a new house, and I don't want to move. I want the house that I live in to be healthy. So let's do it from inside. And I didn't know that the project was going to time with 250. That wasn't on my brain. First chats with Brandy, fall of 2022. But then when you made me aware of that and these conversations started to grow, I was like, well, isn't this fortuitous? Because it's so in line with a wider vision, because it's hyper local to Indiana, but it's much bigger than that. It's layer upon layer upon layer, and what a gift to be able to have a conversation about a much wider spectrum than just Hamilton County. Yeah.
Or
it's also just hard to play with, the poetry thing. It's hard to play with format until you know the rules pretty well. And the more you understand, my dad always used to say spirit of the law versus the actual law, because I just wasn't a big rule follower or whatever, or was rambunctious.
Or whatever.
But, when I broke the rules, sometimes it would be okay and sometimes it wouldn't. I'd try and point out the differences, and he'd be like, hey, why did the rule get made? Are we trying to keep you safe? Are we trying to keep other people safe? Ask that question then. If you don't like the rule, fine. But figure out why we're making the rules. And if you can figure out why the rules exist, then all of a sudden you get to play with the format. If you can find the spirit of the thing, the genius loci of the law, then all of a sudden you can participate a little bit more creatively with it.
That just, wow. that just really hit me too, because America 250 kind of seems like something that the rule for America 250 calls for celebration.
Right.
But
totally.
When you really kind of peel back the layers, it turns into a lot of people around here aren't trying to celebrate right now.
Yeah, or celebration isn't always party hats.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Sometimes celebration is riot. Sometimes celebration is a protest. Sometimes celebration is a sad song. Sometimes celebration is a celebration of life and moving on to the next season. And that can mean different things for different people, and you can participate with someone else's archetypal truth in that without it being yours and having to say it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've appreciated how museums at large, and we've been talking about this throughout the podcast, have approached America 250, where it is, and it's not even building something new, it's building something that is closer to those ideals of 250 years ago. But it's these ideals that we can coexist, that we can maybe not get along, but we collaborate, we build these communities together, and we figure out ways to do it. 250 years ago, a bunch of men got together and figured it out, even though they didn't agree at all.
Potentially with the aid of a single French Canadian.
And under a full moon.
Yeah.
Just had to throw a little shade.
That is one of my favorite parts of the exhibit.
I saw you noticing that, and I was really happy about it.
But yeah, all of these myths too that come with the founding of this country that we don't have to believe in, and we can build our own mythologies. We can build our own story.
Yeah, and I like how lit up you got in that, because I think it's interesting to talk about the words that get used in the context of all this as well. And you have the general assumption as to what a celebration is, how it's defined, what it could be, what it should be, or what it's supposed to be, what it's looked like in the past. And thinking of what this project ended up being, kind of to our surprise in a lot of ways, we ended up having a lot of things that are just kind of objective realisms in the space. It's a lot of stuff that is technically trash in there, presented as art, where in past installations there was a little bit of you get to the trailhead to do the hike, and you put the blinders on or take the photo to not have any of the cars or the trash on the Saley Road.
Leave the power lines out.
Yeah, just to get the photo of the mountain. And sometimes the install is just the photo of the mountain. But with this, we
took the picture from the parking lot.
Yeah. So we went down the river, and there's a photo on the wall over here of all these cinder blocks that just got dumped by somebody down the ravine and are pouring down into the White River now. And for us, it became really important to just be real with the stuff that's there. And I think that ties in with what should a celebration look like in this moment, and to kind of just put facts on the table and have a sort of this unoffendable laying out of here's the things that we can like tell the
Yeah.
truth about. Here's what America supposedly was founded upon.
Yeah.
Here's some of the things that have happened. Certainly no way to tell all of it, but let's refill the
Yeah.
cup and like let's sit here and talk about it and be real about it and be
And like, you're not gonna like, if you're having a celebration in the backyard, you're not gonna leave it messy. You're not gonna like leave trash everywhere. You're not gonna not go weed the garden. You're not gonna not plant flowers beforehand. You're not gonna like leave the mess under the tree. Like, you go take care of it. If you're gonna have a celebration, you got to be like proud of where you're celebrating. And I think that our urge, on the back end of like processed food and e-classes and internet certificates of success, like there's not a lot of willingness to like prep for the celebration in ways that actually make sense in the long form. Like, it's a 250-year celebration. What have you been doing for the last 30 years to celebrate?
Right. I love that. Can we go to Joy Corner?
Sure, we can go to Joy
I
Corner.
know you guys are super busy, so I want to get through.
Yeah, but this
Oh, yeah, I
this
saw
is a great
that.
time.
fossil over here.
Saw that in Denver.
You found that?
No.
Oh,
There's a Rocky Mountain Dinosaur Resource Center founded by just a couple of paleontologists, and they just sell a bunch of fossils. So
Wow.
I went 20 years ago, and then I found the same place when I went back. It's just
Just
like,
bumped into it, or did you? Go
oh, I
this time you went on purpose.
I went to about 5 museums looking for it.
awesome.
I knew it was one of them.
Did you bring? Is this your tooth? And they're like, no, up the
The
road.
natural curiosity of youth.
So I have one that, well, I mean, it's very much related to what we were just talking about. So it's a quick little departure, but not really. So I want to ask you both, Wes and Ryan, is there an artistic medium that you've never tackled but you would like to?
Oh, yeah.
If money was just of absolutely no object, which is something we've been saying a lot on this podcast, just like throw the
Big time.
throw the finances out the window.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple pottery studios. I've always wanted to do glass blowing. I mean, that's like, I could figure that out. That's like a realistic potential. But also like large scale earthworks. I just think it's like the coolest thing. And it's like such a white masculine artist thing to do, like historically speaking, but it just looks so fun to move dirt and rocks around to make cool things that you get to like be in. It's basically the outdoor version of an installation.
Yeah. Well, glass blowing, you should check out Ball State. There's these benefactors, the Glicks, that finance all of this like art, like pieces in new fields and
Don't
all of
mind
these
if I
things.
do.
Yeah. No, they're art or glass. And you went up to Greentown Glass, but glass has an interesting history here too. So
I wish I was a dancer. I if I could just like be given like I would love like a full year to just like dedicate like 50 hours a week to dancing with some of the people that are the most interesting dancers and just like teach me how to move my body like that. Like that sounds really, 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 really fun. Like, and then to have that be part of the way that you can exist in the world. I just plainly think that would be fun to move around in these ways. Like there's a couple dancers that we looked at for where water flows uphill where like I'm sure this isn't what they're trying to do, but it looks like they're
For those
like
of you not watching, he's just writhing in his chair.
it's the way that like it's the way that a beetle would flip over from its back
Yeah.
to proper on its legs. Like that doesn't sound graceful, but that's what I think of like the ideal dancing. Where it's like this like sort of strange ability to like become the embodiment of things around you. And some of the dancers that I think are really interesting aren't necessarily in like a proper like genre even, or maybe there is, but I don't know the name of the genre. But
Art pop.
art pop. But I find it fascinating. It's something that I would be learning mostly from scratch. Besides, like I like dancing at weddings and house parties and things like that. Like I have no formal training whatsoever.
But you don't need it for like the Cupid Shuffle and the Cha Cha Slide.
But I can't even do those.
You liar. Every dance becomes the Dougie for Wes.
Like it just This is a great. I could hang out in this Joy Corner for a while. 'Cause
Yeah,
it makes me happy
yeah.
just thinking about
I
dancing.
know, I thought about so many other things I want to do now.
Easton, do you have one?
I was about to say, like, let's flip it the other side of the table.
Oh, I've always wanted to be more creative. So we actually did do a Joy Corner that was like, well, if you could do an instrument, because I've always like wanted to play an instrument. Because like the way my school worked was like you played an instrument, mandatory. You had to play an instrument, and then in middle school the cutoff was like, well, now you can either do art or you can do choir or you can do band, but you can't do all three. And so I always kind of feel like, I don't know, maybe had I continued with like percussion or whatever, it would have been good. So every time I go to like a music store, I get a little like sad because it's like, there's people out there who like have this down to like an art form, and I feel like I just kind of missed that part of the development.
Yeah, or you
Now
were
I
on
don't
the
have
ride
time.
and then you like got off the ride and you're like, oh, I wish I would have
Stayed on.
But I wanted to be a visual artist. Like, I liked writing poetry and painting and things. So like I wanted to do the visual art. So I was like, heck yeah, put me in art class, not knowing that I was missing out on other forms of art.
Yep.
Because that's not really how art was defined. So I'm glad you took it more to a whole, like a different way of like dancing is art. Just like video games are art.
Yeah.
And,
Coding is art.
coding is art. I mean, there's so many different art forms. So
Totally.
like, I guess it just kind of depends on what my hyperfixation is.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
what I'm looking at, I'm like, gosh, I wish I
Totally.
could do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry if that's like kind of a nothing answer, but
No, it's great. Yeah.
Fit right in.
I mean, for me, like video, I feel like I'm not necessarily an artist in video, but I'm not going to say that because you're going to probably call me out on it. So I'll say I wish
That's right.
I wish I was an animator because
Oh,
that
yeah,
is
yeah.
something distinct from what I do.
Yeah.
And I'm just blown away. It's people
It's a whole
see-
different way of thinking.
Yeah, and it's vaguely the same industry, and so like
Right.
you get to like rub arms with some really cool animators, and they're doing so cool things. And yeah, I'm just amazed, and I wish like I've tried Blender
And a really fun history.
Yeah.
Like, just a fun thing to pull from.
because you're pulling science into it,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's
It's cool.
that would be cool.
Yeah. I kind of want to just like do another round. Like let's just like come up with everybody
all
come
right,
up with
number
another.
two.
Let's-
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's your
well, this one, okay. So I actually do have a really, really pointed answer for this one. So if anybody needs time to think, I can just go on my little rant. But does anybody in here have a fast food hot take? And it doesn't even have to be about like food you eat. It could just be about, it could be about advertising. It could be about fast food's role in this idea of Americana, since we are talking about America 250.
Oh, I'll bring it back to the corn archetype.
Please do.
So the corn and the sycamore is the sage archetype. The corn is what, the explorer?
I'm a sycamore, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's me.
That's a
That's
good
mine.
one. So, the old growth
Metaphor of abundance.
forest got cut down. Corn replaced it. Corn is this metaphor of abundance. It's this monocrop, but it also kind of ties into the excess of America, and but at the same time, it's also like the reason we grew big and strong, and the reason we got tall, and the reason a lot of things became cheaper and easier, and nutrition got better, and so I used to try and pick a side on things like this, but that's kind of my fast food take now. I'm like, well, sometimes you just got to do it. It's it's easy, it's fast, it's delicious, but you also just got to know that cotton candy or whatever for breakfast isn't the best thing to do it.
It's
But I have this big binary with corn because I'm like, it is the reason we get to live the lives we live, but it has also just decimated the American ground.
Yeah.
it's to me it's really threaded in to gas station culture as well, which we have a moment in the film, again, that act of let's not put blinders on to taking a photo of the mountain. It's we're all going to gas stations all the time, and you go into a gas station, and I've been driving back and forth up for these projects for years and years and years now, so I've spent a lot of time in all these random weird little gas stations all over the country, and exhausted or hungry or whatever, and then you pop into the gas station and it's just maximalism in pure definition, every surface covered with advertisement and gum and meat snack and everywhere, and fast food is another version of that, just ubiquitous. You could be dropped blindfolded anywhere and you're going to show up and you're going to have the same couple or few things most anywhere, and part of me wants to just to hold things in binary, like this is bad and this is good. And it's been like sort of this recent unfolding to be like, well, let's dig into like the fascination a little bit more. Like there's like a weird psychological pull with all of this. Like, let me find out like why we're drawn to these things at like a cellular level and an imaginal level, and to try and just find some of the nuance versus just like so black and white with my opinion on it. And sort of like in a weird way, like I feel like we've kind of become like collectors of gas station experiences.
And cucumber pepino or cucumber lime is the best Gatorade flavor, bar none.
So
That's
like,
my hot take.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
the hot take becomes like I have a lot of choices that I make. Most of the time, the choices don't lead me in most of my lived life. They don't lead me into a fast food spot. But I'm not gonna pretend that I also don't make the choice to go in. Especially like when we're on these trips, it becomes like eating habits kind of go out the window.
We always say one of our greatest gifts is that we can eat fast food and just be fine right afterwards and keep working the next day, which, like, you know,
That's not the case.
a lot
for
of people, as
everyone.
you start aging up, if you stop eating fast food, you can't just go eat fast
Yeah.
food whenever you want. So it is a great gift in my life that I can choose to eat fast food whenever I want.
I don't want to keep going on. I'm actually really curious to hear your hot
what's your
take.
hot take?
Well, it's well, y'all's just like really, really like very deep, and mine is just gonna be like, listen, everyone knows what a Coke Freestyle machine is, right?
Yeah.
I don't.
Okay, so it's that giant thing that looks like a futuristic refrigerator with a touchscreen where you can essentially put your own flavors into a soda. So if you want like a grape Coca-Cola, you can make that. Or if you want like
Five Guys has them. That's where I get it a lot.
yeah, if you want like a vanilla Fanta orange with a touch of cherry, you can make that.
Freestyle.
A Coke Freestyle. It was super huge for a while because like they had their own commercials about it, like
Yeah.
Coke Freestyle coming to a place near you, and I don't know how it works.
But half
like,
the time the software needs an update or something when you go to
yeah.
those places.
I'm just saying, if you have one, I'm guessing it's like a branch to branch thing. Like not every place probably has one. But if you're gonna have one and then get rid of it, you need to give a warning first.
You put out a memo.
I said, like on your you gotta put up a
Dear
sign that's
vanilla
like.
Fanta drinkers, get ready for regular Fanta.
Because imagine how sad I'm not gonna I'm not gonna call out the branch because they're relatively close by.
Call out the branch. Call out the branch.
It's the Dairy Queen on Allisonville. They had a Coke Freestyle, and so I'm in here like, I'm gonna get my peach lemonade or my peach Sprite. I like peach a lot, and so then you walk in and it's just like a regular like 6-tap Coke machine, and I'm like, what have y'all done? What have you done? And it made me
somewhere else.
It made me so sad. So like I'm ready for my special drink, and then it's just like actually it's no longer.
Back to basics.
You got to put out the memo.
You do have to put out a sign, something. Branches have specific social media accounts. You know, put it out there.
Hire a plane with a banner.
It'd be like, just so y'all know, the Coke Freestyle machine will be gone in April.
That whole sentence on a banner. Just so y'all know.
Just so y'all know, comma, the Coke Freestyle will
The
be
manager
gone.
of the store is like, we're paying $250 per letter. Maybe we could shorten it, like no freestyle. Like, just let's shorten the
At
manager.
that point, you're just buying another freestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know, Connor Prairie, maybe we should get a Coke Freestyle machine.
Yeah.
So,
Or at least a couple more drinking fountains.
oh boy. There you go.
See where
That's
that one
my-
lands.
Incredible.
Here's my joy. Ryan, share your joy.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear your guys' perspective on fast food because Claire and I, Claire, my partner, we come from different areas of the country, and she has a much different perspective on fast food than I do, and I have a much different perspective on what Midwest maybe calls more fancier cuisine. She's a foodie, and so she loves going to if you go out to eat, it should be something you can't make at home, and it needs to it's an investment for an experience. And coming from the Midwest, that's scary. And so my hot take is
I don't make cheese curds at home, so
right.
Peppers, baby.
Well, so my hot take is all of these fast casual places disappearing is actually kind of a bad thing because it is that in between that kind of prepares you.
Totally.
So in Carmel, our Fazoli's left, and it, left a hole in my heart. But yeah, it's just an interesting perspective because even like my parents taking them to places on the East Coast, they were intimidated by the menu. They didn't really know what to do sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think your Olive Gardens, your Red Lobsters kind of, ease you into that. And so I'm sad.
Take that tour of Italy, baby.
Yeah, I'm sad of the fast casual leaving. Yeah.
I will say it's sort of a when in Rome situation
Yeah.
for us too. Like when you,
I'm going to send it if we do it.
we had a trip where we were coming out here, and it was just raining cats and dogs, and we had pulled in. Like a lot of times we're in the Midwest. Like let's stop at the Bass Pro Shop. Let's go to Cabela's on the way. So we like pull in whatever we got in
We never
Cabela's,
leave empty-handed.
and then we're hungry. Right across the parking lot is the Olive Garden, and so we just like booked it. It was like too close to drive, but too far to walk, and came into Olive Garden.
We were
just
towing the drifting
absolutely-
studio, so we didn't want a parking lot hop because it was like too much. So we're like, all right.
And we had a great time. We had a great time in there. It was hilarious, and it's also like,
We were laughing too hard to eat half the time.
and it's also like, with this stuff, I'm not trying to be too serious about it because we're in the joy corner over here, but like you got to go to where the people are too.
Yeah.
And that's like, this is just like, this is where people hang out. This is where people eat. And if you're gonna like participate with the world, sometimes like you got to jump in and just like be everywhere. It's culture acted out and living in a lot of ways too, which is just a good time.
In and Out is the peak of fast food. That's my
That's
final
your
hot
hot
take.
take. That's
In and Out wins.
I've never been to an In-N-Out.
Dude, you got to get there. Next time you're in the western portion of the United States.
Okay, adding it to the bucket list as we speak.
Double animal style mustard instead. Add chopped chilies.
So I have two closing questions. They're kind of related, unless you don't want them to be. They can be unrelated.
Send it.
The first one is, and we've had this conversation before, but you guys are going to leave at some point, and this thing that you've created, you have all of these stories, you have all of these sources, all of this behind the scenes. You put intention in it, and a lot of us know that, but you will leave, and the community is going to come in and create their own meaning, create their own stories. It's going to evolve. What are your thoughts on that? Is that built into kind of how you look at an art installation?
It's the case where our good friend Megan Dickerson said this one time when we opened a project called the Wonder Sound in 2016, and she said like the opening truly is like it's the starting line for the thing. So a lot of times like we worked on the thing, we feel like, wow, we're done. But truly, like, the done part is only, like, the little scrap of the life of it. And this is the beginning of it. And so we, like, at this point, having been around the block a handful of times with making this, like, there's, like, an emotional readiness to then just hand it over. And it's it's like one wave on the whole ocean of all of this. To me, like, it's just one lifelong big project. And, like, this is just like a peak of a wave that's here. And having folks that we like deeply trust, that we've gotten to know, that like I love everyone here, and the fact that everybody here is going to be running programs in it, partnering, taking the archetypes and then turning that into the cabins at summer camp, or imparting the characters on the trail system. If people were bumming out and didn't want to be here, like, it makes us nervous, the idea if people are contemptuous about the existence of it. But when you have, I had a chat with our good friend Michelle, who's running the trail system. She's doing bird watch, she's doing forest therapy, and she's going to incorporate everything with Wellspring into that. She stacked the library. Like, she is like a caretaker, and I like cry every time I start to try and thank her for everything she's about to do.
Absolutely.
So it's like it's this beautiful trust fall.
Yeah.
Like, it's just going into the foam pit and like trust falling into it, because this is what's supposed to happen. It's scary every time, but this is the nature of giving it away.
I don't do great with emotions, and so a lot of times I have to like explain things to myself in order to like believe in them.
You hide it very well, though.
I get emotional about this. my dear mother is like protective of like the work I've done, and she's like, people aren't gonna know, people aren't gonna understand, like how are people gonna get this and this and this, and I was trying to figure out how to convey how I feel about it, and it's almost like we're like boat makers or car makers, like knowing that like I made this thing watertight. I chased all the things down. I know that like you can take this places and trust that it will float because the things mean stuff to me. And yes, everything means so much to me. And I wrote countless words in prep and just like writing down my thoughts and trying to figure out these characters. And like James and I, the composer, and I just have like hours and hours of backlog conversations about like the real nuances of like all of these things going on. You'll never know how much every single tile was touched and polished and how much every sound was like fought over and wrought for, and how many people were involved in like bringing this thing to a place where we're like really proud of it. But like also that's just a way to stress test it, to make sure that when you do chase down this stuff, when you do try and find significance, when you do overlay your own narrative on it, there's places to go. And so I just have to kind of like let it ride. Like, I know you're going to be safe in this car. I know this boat will take you where you need to go. And I just get to like let it go and like let people kind of ride it out. And I don't, if I let myself be offended when people didn't understand it, I would live so unhappily, because like no one will care for it like I did. Well, because I got to make it. They will care for it in their own way, but they won't care for it like I did.
And that the growth of the ownership for everybody that will come to own it from like, and that's way beyond people that like work here, right? Like this is the 8-year-old that comes here as a member all the time. Like this would be like their backyard. Like they own it. Like
it's not for us staff. No,
it's
in
this.
3 years we won't remember the language. We'll have to look at a paper to like re-remember it, and these kids will be speaking it here.
And the act of owning it means you have words to speak to your experience of that, and thinking of the way that people describe what's happening in there. Of like we put things in certain places for specific reasons, and people will have their own reasons as to why they're there. And one of the things that I'm really fascinated and really excited about, that's what I was chuckling about over here on the side, because like there's all these cutting boards everywhere, and there's like everything else, there's so much meaning with it, but like not a word in anything is spoken as to like what it actually means. And I am so excited for all the different little side conversations.
What is this charcuterie themed exhibition?
Have you been to the charcuterie themed install over there? Setting up for a party, and like there were two folks that were asking yesterday. They're like, what is this all about? Like, why did you have all these in here? Or like, there was this. She's 9. She was like, another friend was like, what? Like, what does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? And to like give her this, I'm really vexing answer to be like, I'm gonna be so annoying. What do you think it means? And like the answers that are there, I heard somebody say like, oh, I think it could mean they took all of these pieces that were like, and she air quoted, historical, and then cut it up to make something new. And I was like, well, that's a really excellent answer. And 100 times more concise than I can talk about anything in here. So you should answer everything.
Yeah, at some point we like lose the ability to give an easy answer.
And
because we're just in the sauce at this point.
Yeah. There's a lot of sauce in there that doesn't need to be explained. And we explain a lot of the sauces in the BTS, but like, there's this example that I always come back to in The Old Man in the Sea. The old man on the sea has all these dreams of lions coming down to the beach, and not once in the book are the lions or the beach scene ever explained, and you're left in your lit class to talk about what that might mean. So there's all these moments in there you're like, what could this be? And like that's the conversation. But if it's just explained straight out, here it is, you don't have any more questions. Your curiosity got turned off.
It's the beauty of symbolism too.
It's the way to connect with people, right? You're having that conversation with someone else. It's not just, you get to read it and then you move on to the next label.
Yeah, and sometimes I think of people like a never-ending stew. Like you serve, but then you just keep adding ingredients, but the pot never really goes empty. And like there were so many things that are like ancient subconscious things in this for me that like aren't even really worth talking about anymore, because they're just like, fractional turtles all the way down ingredients in my stew at this point, but like I just know other people bringing their stew in, and like you just kind of get this flavor based on what you brought in to the pot.
Yeah.
I love that.
I'm really excited for people to
Yeah.
come up. Like we'll come back in a couple years and people are going to be talking about things, and there'll be like little, like, you know, rumors of there's a sturgeon that lives at the bottom of the quarry. Don't go in there. All the like the storytelling that will happen. That I'm like, this just grew up in and of itself.
Yeah.
Because it'll happen in a way that's like totally surprising to us. So it's really fun.
Well, my final question, we'll see where you go with this. We ask every episode, no matter what the topic it is, what is your hope for the future?
I have like a pretty straightforward answer, which is a rare thing for me, but like I really want to be a part of like helping kids believe that they can do something interesting with their body in the real world. I just want kids to believe that there's a future where like they can show up in person and do things that matter to the people around them.
Beautiful.
I love that, Ryan. I was gonna have an answer, but then I like your answer, so I'm gonna like riff off
Say it
of.
there.
You want me to talk?
Talk to the pandas.
But I can't think about the future without looking at the ceiling. I was trying to figure out which direction, because that's such a big open-ended question, like which pathway forward. And I would like to continue to live in a life that still is really sensory based as things continue to get more and more outsourced to other things that aren't your physical mind, body, heart. I would like to continue to participate really deeply, like with my physical self in a physical world, while still learning how to use tools that are effective in ways, and still like to continue to like speak relevantly about the future that I'm also a little dismayed by, to be able to like live in that while still being an example to my own kids of like your body has a place in this bigger body.
Yeah.
Don't outsource all of your thinking. Don't outsource all of like your hand skills, because of the joy that comes from living in a world where you get to like use this full self, and thinking of it like we're all a different instrument, and to not participate with like that full sensory experience is to like put the guitar in the corner. It's to like it's to like own a drum set, but you don't own any sticks, so you're like just gonna like look at it. It's like we are all these instruments that are meant to be played by participating with like your analog self. So like in the bigger conversation of everything that like the world is growing into, like to be able to be that. What do you? I want to hear it.
Siri, play me 1465, and then you don't ever have to play music again.
And then that's it. Yeah.
Or you are playing music. No.
Who knows? Okay, your answers?
Oh, we don't ever answer these.
Oh, what's our hope for the future?
Yeah, I want to know.
Oh, man. The table has turned.
I mean, again, coming from a perspective of history, I think through history, it's what, provides me with meaning, identity. And I do hope that we do a better job at communicating our history.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that, I know that's a kind of more practical, but like that is what I kind of dedicated my life to. Yeah. And so that's what I want to make history accessible, and I want people to understand how that history impacts and this is cliche, but today and in the future.
Yeah. Yep. That's great.
Yeah, I think that, something that y'all just said, I feel very inspired in here. So some of it y'all just said, though, about Wellspring kind of growing up after y'all, move to your next Wellspring, whatever that, and wherever that may be. One thing that kind of popped in my head is like the kind of the wide umbrella of lore, or what we call the lore of a place. Because as a historian, it's kind of like lore is kind of something you want to avoid, because it's more often than not even if some like teeny tiny bits are true, it's not holistically true, and historians are supposed to facts.
Right.
But I also think that like, well, having something like one of the best, one of my favorite research requests I ever did in this job was about the Headless Horseman, and kind of how like, you know, the lore of that when Washington Irving, that's his name, right? Okay, great. Washington Irving, you know, going over to Europe and hearing about their headless horseman myths, and finding out how like there's a headless horseman myth in India, like there are headless horseman myths all over the place. And when he came back and like Battle of White Plains happens, one of the Hessian soldiers loses their head, and then he creates this myth of the headless horseman, and now it's like it's all over the place. And so my favorite thing about that was just kind of like, well, that lore has become history. Even though we don't necessarily know where that Hessian soldier is buried, you know, like, so even if that isn't holistically true, it's become holistically important. And like, I mean, some people may not even go to Sleepy Hollow if not for the legend of the headless horseman. So that kind of thing of like, Wellspring is going to get a legend of itself. And kind of how I just wish people would kind of
that's fun.
Look at history in a way that's like, it is so important, like Ryan said, but there's also other ways to look at it that's not just, if enough sources don't say that this happened, I'm ignoring it. But instead it's like history is so much more than that.
Dude, I gotta say one thing. I got to take World Civ 1 and Art History 1 at the same time, and my backdoor into loving history was because I was looking at the art that was being made alongside the history. And so like the lore was like made me realize that like history is like so perspectival. And that like the way that it's said through these people or through these people or through these people might actually be true. Like this is post-cynical and being like, oh, only the victors write history or whatever. But like the lore helps you like empathize with the people in the thing. And that was like, then I was like, I want more history, and then I want to look at the art that was made during it.
Oh, wow.
And lore's so interesting because even if it's not, again, air quotes, true, it holds meaning. It's important. It's how we're identifying ourselves, especially. But yeah. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Can I say one thought with it? Yeah, just because it's like it's like
It's too good.
Well, it's like a counter. Maybe this is a counterpoint. Maybe this is gonna like be aggravating to the historians at the table. But it's maybe an Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. It's a Jonathan Safran Foer book, but I forget which one. But there's a character that essentially like kind of goes through this arc where he like stops trying to figure out the difference between fact and fiction, and there's like kind of this freedom with that. And the reason that I remember it is because the feeling that I get from it is like the possibility of futures. Because sometimes like for my personality, like when I read the book, sometimes like my experience then of the thing can be reduced versus the possibility of all of the lore that my mind comes up with. And I'm trying to, there's the facts, but there's also all the other things that it could have been. So then when you have a place like Prairie that has a lot of lore in it, and there's a lot of damage that comes from lore, and it's important to like to weed out the things that can be violence making or life taking or dishonoring or disrespectful that come from lore. And then also again, like my personality takes lore to be like, well, now my heart is open to the possibility of all these different things sort of being within reach to live into that. And when I don't quite know what's real or unreal, that gives me the possibility to be more creative with the futures that are made from the unknowing. So.
Yeah, lore out of the real, like lore over and above what you know to be true is so different than lore as the foundation.
Yeah.
I hate to cut this off. This is a great conversation, and
this was really fun.
It ties back to Prairie. We're
absolutely
folklore, very important. What people are believing. Even again, if there's not a source to it, they're still believing in it, and so that's important to look back and understand. So I, again, appreciate not just the time you've spent today, but all of the work and time and research you spent learning about this place, learning about the people here. It's incredible. Obviously, if you have not seen Wellspring, please do.
See it.
It's incredible.
Okay.
See it.
And you can come through it so many times, see something different every single time.
Yeah. Onion layer.
Thanks to
onion layer.
Prairie and all the people we met along the way for having us.
Yeah.
Truly,
Thank
such an
you.
honor
Thank
to
you.
be
Thank you.
here.
It was a pleasure. By the way, before we leave, everyone, I said my archetype. Do y'all want to say yours really quickly?
I'm a deer.
Deer.
I today, yeah. I'm gonna be mushroom today.
Mm-hmm.
Coyote.
I'm a sycamore. I said it earlier, but we'll link some things. Oh, oh man, that's such a big. Okay, I hate to just drop something super deep and I hate to like throw a brick and run, but we're at this. Okay, so like I think growing up, we can cut this, but growing up, I just think that in a lot of ways. Oh gosh. Okay, so I was as quick as I possibly can. I was raised. I went to a very white school. I was one of the only black kids there. So like the whole aspect of like how I was raised in the whole like you have to present yourself in such a way to where you are not equated to the worst that other people will see.
Right.
Kind of similarly to how sycamores are strong and they're rooted in what is said in the poem as holy ground. The sycamore is a dependable thing, but it doesn't have the mobility of other things, like the sturgeon and the eagle and all that. Like, for example, I actually, before I found out that the eagle had some symbolism with William Connor, I was actually like, I want to find the one that I identify with, but look at the one that I feel a little bit envious of. And I was envious of the eagle because the eagle is very confident. Almost like it's like this figure that's been everywhere and knows everything. And to me, I think part of the, my beliefs even still today is like a sycamore needs to stay where it is because eventually some of those mobile animals are going to need it for shelter or something. And however that is, like if someone needs to come see like, hey, I don't know. I don't know how to like perfectly say it without getting really, really deep. But like, I think it's just, I think I just identified with that because there's this kind of thing of like, staying consistently in who you are is very important.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you saying that. It's hard to talk about the best parts of yourself like that on the spot, and I really appreciate that.
Well,
that was beautiful.
Yeah. I'm sweating now.
Yeah, I love it.
Awesome. Do you want to close us out, Easton?
Do you want to talk about why you're a deer?
Nope.
I do, but I won't.
I respect that. A lot of love around this table. A lot of joy.
Lot of love.
You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. So we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and eventually the
YouTube.
the Kind of Prairie website and YouTube. Hi,
Sweet.
YouTube. But until next time. Hey, everybody. This is Editing Room Easton. So I kind of want to go back and reiterate on some of the things I said at the end of this episode. So when Wes and Ryan were asking me why I thought I was the sycamore archetype at Wellspring. Basically what I was trying to say is, moving through the world as a black man in predominantly white spaces like Connor Prairie or my school or wherever, there's a sense of responsibility that it kind of comes that's equally freeing as it is sometimes a perceived burden. So that's essentially what I was trying to say is that much like a sycamore, you can't necessarily move the way other things in the forest are moving. And especially when all of their archetypes, you have the sturgeon, the bald eagle, and the sycamore is kind of looked at as being more dependable. But I wanted to say that in a way that didn't seem like pseudo-tokenizing and also maybe not grateful to my parents for raising me the way they did, which was very well. And so that's essentially what I was trying to say here. But it was kind of smushed at the very end of the podcast, so that's why I didn't really have a lot of time to talk about it. So hopefully that clears some things up. So that's all. The end. Thank you. I'm happy with that.